Does he throw it from over there? What's the safe throwing distance? Sorry, I have made it difficult for you with the camera. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. Can't remember everything all the time. It's a bit like doing ATM. Something slips out of awareness.
I had a realisation in conversation that's me as the person having my hands on
that's better.
the other person. I was more in my agenda rather than perhaps being there to serve the other person and learn. Sort of all my stuff came up. Yeah, so that was very interesting. So how do I sense the other person?
Did you notice that at the time?
I didn't, but in the conversation, I realised that, yes.
So how do you listen? How do you put yourself in the background?
Yeah.
More in the background to be able to listen to somebody else. That's a skill.
Yeah.
Real skill. So that's a great insight.
Yeah.
Hi. We went back and after our discussion and tried it again because we decided to experiment with the amount of pressure of the touch. We both sort of felt that we might have been a bit wussy to start with and a bit, and so then we went back and were a bit firmer and it made a huge difference. It's a gigantic difference in how when I was lying down I could sense my movement when the pressure was just that little bit more.
Great.
Yeah.
So again, that's another question. There is no right
amount,
but what does this person need to be able to sense themselves, and how much do I need to apply pressure, contact, contour in order to feel them, to help them sense themselves?
And that's right too, the contour was a big thing, and because what we noticed was that a lot of the parts of the body were moving within themselves as well as travelling through space.
Yes.
And so it was that double thing that you were trying to follow.
Yes. You did very well, I thought, actually.
We begin to do this quality of, that means go for a ride. It's something very new, and it's very, I think, related to this method in particular. It's not to try to change the other. It's not to try to lead the other. It's just be there and go for a ride with the other and be respectful. And this is something sometimes we are, or in my case, this is really
learning.
Really new.
Learning.
Yeah. And as Gloria said, you feel totally different. The sensation who was right at the horse feels different. It feels different.
Yes.
And it's and another thing I want to ask you, when we do this is like an ATM mixed with a little FI, or this is an ATM with that in an individual context?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. There's many contexts for this today, but one, I wanted to see how you related to each other. You've already begun observing. We all observe movement in life, but observing movement. So having the experience of the detail and the global, which you've been introduced to in the previous segments, then having, feeling that in yourself, observing someone and seeing whether you can be global details. I kept it fairly open. And then going for a ride to experience the complexity of actually engaging with someone like that while they're moving. For each one of you, it will probably evoke something different. but to have the opportunity to feel how much it changes. It can influence somebody else's organisation, to have that quality of, there's many ways we can describe it: second skin, going for a ride, being a passenger, and it's different with every person how you make that connection. So it was also to help you as the person who's facilitating your learning this segment. Can't give you all an FI today, but to help you sense each other in whatever way you're able to is going to help bring you here more into yourselves and more into the room. So there was a little element of FI in there, but it's a tool we use a lot. We sense people when they're moving and when they're still, and it's quite a skill to learn to organize yourself to be able to not interfere and track someone else and still listen to them. So it's a approximation.
Just to follow on from that, but when you're actually, doing an FI, you feel what someone's doing or observe that, or, go with the ride, but then you're obviously going to observe, there's maybe no movement there, or that's kind of a bit blocked, or whatever. And obviously with training, you have an idea of there could be what you could do to maybe assist that person to have other opportunities for movement.
Very well articulated. Carefully, yes.
Because, we're doing this gentle kind of touching here, but most FIs I've had a fairly firm, actually. Not firm, not like someone's trying to do something, but it's quite a firm touch, I've found personally. And you do have some kind of agenda though, yeah, which is to support that person to have increased opportunities for movement. So you're influencing just by your intention and by putting your hands in different parts, and possibly, it's more than just going for a ride, is that not?
In an FI?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, okay.
But definitely more, when you engage in giving someone an FI, it's more than going for a ride. So I'm sorry if that was confusing, but there's an element of giving feedback to somebody and helping them experience themselves. It's very much a part of FI, and that's what her question, I was contextualizing the question. I didn't mean to suggest this was an FI.
No, yeah, I'm just clarifying around FIs.
Yeah. So is there a question that you want answered?
The question was in an FI.
Yeah.
That you're doing more than going for a ride.
Definitely.
And you've said yes.
Definitely.
Just on that, thank you. Raymond said to me that he felt like I was one step ahead of him with when I was touching him. So is that something that you should back off, or is that too much?
So that means if
I knew he was moving that way, so I was gently assisting him that way. But maybe is that?
Yes, so that could be leading or suggesting,
yes,
rather than being a passenger or going for a ride.
Yes. Simply
following and helping them sense themselves as they move.
Yeah. Good, that's clarified it, because I sort of felt like I thought perhaps give him a gentle assistance, but maybe I was doing it. Yeah. And the feedback was he felt like I was already preempting his movement.
So that kind of links into, I'm sorry, what was your name? Anna, one of the Annas, that's right. I could just say Anna. Anna's question about pressure. Just to say something briefly, in my experience, most people are either too tentative or too forceful, and have difficulty finding a handle that helps them connect. So and it is always about finding the Goldilocks touch. What feels comfortable for you, what doesn't feel like it's interfering, and you develop that capacity to be able to sense that. And these sort of exercises and explorations help develop that. So people who've had experience with touching tend to touch too firmly and don't necessarily know how to find a skeletal contact, although that wasn't the focus of this exercise. So learning to have a whole spectrum, degrees, shades of pressure is important in FI. And then you'll find some people will have biases. Some practitioners will have biases. They'll have biases to a firmer touch, or biases to a lighter touch, or a preference to a lighter touch, preference to anticipating. So it's all these nuances that you're learning to explore, sense, and then get some skill in trying out other things, expanding your options for that. Did you want to say something, Jenny? Toss of the bucks. Good catch.
I was just thinking that sometimes the difference between the touch of an experienced practitioner and the touch of someone who's in the learning phase is also about the clarity and what you probably meant as the skeletal touch, that sense of really connecting the bones to the ground or the place of support. And it's not necessarily a firmer touch, it's just a clearer touch, one that kind of seems to make more sense in the system. And so all these varieties of different touch will be useful depending on the intention that we hold as the practitioner. Is it to give some information to you about what you're already doing, which is what we've just done now? Or is it to invite you to explore a direction of movement that perhaps is not sitting on your sideboard right at the moment? Or is it to constrain you from doing something that you want to keep doing and can't stop doing? Or a variety of other intentions.
Sorry. Jenny, so can you just give, in those examples you just gave, what is the difference in the touching that you're doing in those different scenarios? What are you doing differently?
Come back next week or next year.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
You want to watch the final episode before you've seen what the theme.
I was just going to say that when we did it the second time, because we were too soft first, and we went back and did it the second time, the sense that I got from my partner was that we were kind of in relationship. Is that?
Yeah.
It sort of felt like a relationship. Like you couldn't tell who was following and who was leading. We were kind of just together.
Yeah.
Is that
you're forming
what
a system
we're trying to
definitely
go for?
And how did you? So you thought you were in a relationship because you didn't know who was following or leading?
Well, I don't know. The word popped into my head when that second touch was, oh, it's about a relationship.
Yeah.
That's what popped into my head.
Okay.
And I then, kind of, well, why is that? And that was, when we talked about it afterwards, it was sort of like, well, couldn't really tell whether we were following or leading. It was like we were just moving together.
And the metaphor that Moshe uses is it's like dancing. So
yes.
Relationship, it is a relationship, but what you described of not knowing who's following or leading, it's such a smooth, continuous interaction, responsive, that it is definitely a relationship. And dancing is
connected with what you're saying about relationship, made me think now when we lie down on the floor and you're guiding us, it's all these questions that you ask. Can you feel? Can you follow? What is your attention? But when you have someone it's like having the questions from the outside, because as soon as someone put your hand, you go, oh, the attention goes on your shoulder. You know, it's like having a question from the outside, but without talking. It's just bring the attention by touching.
Yes.
It's clear what I'm trying to say.
So sometimes I'm a little slow to pick up the idea or the direction, but I think, so if I understood you rightly, it's a non-verbal communication of the questions like you've been asked.
Yeah.
And so the more you understand your response to those questions that you're asked will actually form a background, a resource for what you might want to communicate to your person in FI in the future.
Thank you. You
Thank
clarified.
you. It's great. Yeah. Okay. Let's have lunch.
Wow.
And is it an hour, Jenny? Yep, let's take an hour. So we'll come back at 1:45.